everyone. Happy 2026. 2025 is in our rear view mirror. I've asked several people to describe the last year in one word. I've gotten all sorts of responses. My response is brutal. 2025 was absolutely brutal. Here is hoping and praying that 2026 is better. It is not starting out that way in the United States since we have decided to invade a sovereign nation and kidnap their president and pretend that's okay. But here we all are. I'm sure a few of you thought she's not coming back. She's done with her podcast. I absolutely did entertain that thought. As I said a few weeks ago, I was ready to pack it in and stop doing this entirely, but that didn't really feel right for me. I have decided, as I also said in that video, that I am no longer going to cover politics and current events. It was raising my blood pressure, angering up the blood, and frankly, stressing me the hell out. So I've decided to put that side of the podcast to bed and return this podcast to what it was originally intended, which is life lessons, things I have learned over the course of my life that I hope other people will find helpful from the perspective of a 50-something Gen X woman, and also a look into issues and topics that I find interesting or important. So that is where this podcast is going back to. This is the first episode of season 4, which is really hard to believe. I was watching the video of a creator I like a few days ago who does music topics, talks about all sorts of things. But he was talking about podcasts and how most people quit or give up before their podcast really has a chance to take off. So he asked if people knew what the average number of podcast episodes people do is before they quit. My thought was 15 or maybe 20. He said 3. The average number of podcasts that people do who are not successful, who give up, is 3 episodes. And I thought, heck, I've got close to 100 just in the last 2.5 years. So I am back. I will not be posting weekly like I was doing before. It was super hectic and just a hard schedule to maintain as a person with a day job and a husband and pets and a life and a writer and a bunch of other things going on. It was just too hard for me to keep up with. So I will be posting twice a month now, so please stay tuned for that. My plan is to post in the second week of each month and the fourth week of each month. Most of the episodes I anticipate will be independent episodes, but there will be a few that will be 2-part episodes. So in other words, you'll get the first part of the episode in the second week of the month, and then you'll get the second part of the episode in the fourth week of the month. So that is one of the changes to look forward to, in addition to covering different type of topics. Today we're going to cover a couple of things. I wanted to talk about the new year and New Year's resolutions. So down in the comments section, please let me know if you make New Year's resolutions and what you think your success rate is. I used to make New Year's resolutions every year, probably from the time I was like 14 or 15, well into my 30s. I would make these resolutions, I would make these lists, and then halfway through the year, like most people, I would just get frustrated and give up. And by the end of the year, I'd go back and look at the list and roll my eyes and ask myself why the heck I bothered, because I knew I wasn't going to do most of that stuff. So that is my experience with New Year's resolutions. What I've done probably since my early 40s up into and including now is, instead of making resolutions, I make plans, because plans are more concrete, right? If we think about doing something and we don't write it down, it's just a thought. If we write it down and then write the steps underneath that need to go with it to help make it fact, to help make it come true, that's a plan. So I write 3 or 4 things that I plan to do for that particular year. And I don't try to cram them in all at one time. That's another mistake I think people make with resolutions, is they'll come up with this list of 5 or 10 things, and then they're trying to get them all done, and then they get frustrated when they get none of them done, and then they quit. Or that could just be me, because that is what I used to do. I would plan to do these 7, 8, 9, 10 things for the year, and then by June or July, be totally irritated with the whole situation because I hadn't done any of them, because I was doing too much. Just entirely too much. So now I keep it to 3, maybe 4 things that I want to work on. And then I've got to lay out the steps, right? I've got to lay out the plan for how exactly this is going to work. So I'm not going to get into heavy detail about the plans for 2026. I'm just going to raise the issues that I'm going to tackle, but just understand under each of these, there are steps. It is a fine line between laying out your steps and giving yourself way too much detail. I am guilty of that also. I am a detail-oriented person. If we're at A and we need to get to J, there's a whole bunch of steps in there, but then under the steps are sub-steps, and you can drive yourself absolutely crazy with detail. So it is finding the right mix for you in terms of putting your idea on paper and making it concrete, making it a plan, and then adding the high-level steps that you need to make your plan work. So, like I said, I'm going to review mine for 2026, just the high-level pieces, and then if you want to share yours with everyone in the community down below in the comments, please do so. It's always interesting to see where people's minds are at the beginning of the year versus what people are thinking about toward the end of the year. So this year I have 4 things that I am planning to focus on. The first, which I'm sure is not a shock because it usually ends up on lists like these, whether you call them a resolution or a plan, is to work out 3 to 5 times a week. I am 55. I am at an age and a stage, as the saying goes, where working out is not optional. It's something I have to do and need to do for my own health. Do I like working out? Absolutely not. Working out bores me to tears and most days just annoys the crap out of me. I have done all sorts of workouts back in the day when it was the thing. I did jazzercise. I've done sweating to the oldies. Rest in peace, Richard Simmons. I have done Zumba and cardio boxing and whatever faddish trend thing that was popular for a hot minute. You name it, I've probably done it. I didn't enjoy any of it. That's just me being honest. The one I came closest to enjoying was jazzercise, but most of these just feel like work. And people will try to tell you, or have tried to tell me, that if you enjoy working out, it's not work. So you just have to find something that you enjoy. Haven't found it yet. Just hasn't happened. So I have to put myself in the mindset of, no, I really have to do this. This is not an option. Pick a DVD. Yes, I still have DVDs. Don't judge me. Pick an exercise DVD and just do it. And understand that it's not going to be enjoyable. It's not going to be fun. Not going to be smiling through it. Just going to do it because it needs to get done. So that's my first thing. My second thing is to finish editing my novel that I've been working on, I guess, since August or September last year, and finding myself an agent. Most of you who are long-term fans of this podcast know that I have been writing since I was a very young child, 5, 6 years old. When I learned how to write, that is when I became a writer. I started creating fictional stories. That is what I write as fiction. The story I've been working on is one I'm really excited about and looking forward to releasing out into the world. Writing a novel is kind of like having a baby, not from the standpoint of pain, but from the standpoint of it's a lot of work. It's a lot of writing is the fun part. Editing and revision is not the fun part. And so I'm right now in the not the fun part of the editing and revision. But it is something you have to do and get good at as a writer to get yourself an agent and get your work out there. So that is one of my big goals for 2026. Consistently uploading this podcast twice a month. Yes, I have put that on my list because if I don't, it won't happen. I will find reasons and ways to weasel out of getting it done. So that is on my list as number 3. And number 4, I'm sure is also not a surprise because it is also on most people's list, is to get my health challenges in check. I have 2, let's say 3. I have 3 serious health challenges that I have to deal with on a daily basis. And my way of coping with it up until now is to just basically ignore it. It's to not deal with it. But again, I am 55 and it is time for the rubber to meet the road and get serious. So that is number 4. That is my list. It's working out. It's finishing my novel and getting myself an agent, consistently uploading this podcast, and getting my health challenges under control. That is what I am focused on for 2026. I have decided that this year I really need to focus on me in terms of my life and how it works. I have always, since I was young, since I understood the concept of friendship, been a person who always put in the 80%. If you're talking about 100%, I would put in the 80 and allow the other person to just put in the 20. And I have reached the point in my life where that doesn't work. And I'm not going to tolerate it anymore. So any people in my life who don't work and can't meet the 50-50, they can't equal the bar, they're gone. I'm just not going to do it anymore. And there are people who will tell you that's a selfish way to look at things. You're not being reasonable. People are busy. It's not that they don't care. It's just that they don't have time. Shove it. Just shove it. It is crap. They are excuses that people make to not be adults, to not want to adult, to not have to hold up their end of a relationship. And my philosophy from this point forward is, if you're incapable of holding up your end of the relationship, you don't deserve the relationship, which means you don't deserve me. And you can take that however you want. People think it's vain, whatever. That is where I am, because I am not willing to tolerate less from people anymore. It's a wrap. So that is what I wanted to talk about for this week as we mark the middle of January already. It really does seem like it was literally New Year's Eve a couple of days ago. My husband and I went out to an 80s party, got dressed up, had a really great time, was only perplexed by two things. One, the fact that some people brought their young children to a New Year's Eve party. And by young, I mean the oldest one might have been 12. It was super perplexing. And the other thing was, I had to get into a philosophical conversation with the DJ about a song request. That has never happened to me in my life. And I was just left standing there going, maybe this is a consequence of age, but I think it was more a consequence of he was lost and confused. I want to thank you for listening to the podcast this week. I am the Brick City Brown Chick. I will be here every other week with a new topic and a new point of view on situations and lessons I have learned. So if you enjoyed today's episode and you know somebody else who you think would, please pass this podcast on to your family and friends. We right now are looking to reach 500 subscribers. That is what we're looking to do. So please pass this podcast on, and I'll see everybody again in a couple of weeks. Take care.